Hello, welcome to part 4 of my 1979 Suzuki GS550 Cafe Racer project. Over the next couple of days I'm going to be working to modify, file, sand and polish the top yoke. When I bought the bike it came with this yoke which someone's modified by cutting off the handlebar clamps and then powder coating it. I want more of a polished alloy look, so I bought this second-hand OEM yoke from eBay for the bargain price of £12.99 including the delivery. When the bike left the factory, the handlebars will have been mounted to the yoke using these clamps, but my bike has clip-ons, so there's no longer a use for the clamps. Having removed the bolts and the upper part of the clamps, you can see that the lower handlebar clamp is the same height as the tube caps on the forks, so my plan is to machine these down using my Clarke CMD300 milling machine and then file, sand and polish the yoke so that all of the imperfections, the scratches and the damage is removed. My goal is to end up with a yoke that's completely smooth with a polished surface. One of the problems with this yoke casting is that if you remove too much of the lower handlebar clamp, you'll break through and you'll end up with holes that look like this. The forks on the bike are 35mm, so I've bought this piece of 35mm aluminium round bar which I'm going to use to make some spacers to clamp down the yoke to the table of my milling machine. With the round bar mounted in the yoke, I'm using this square to mark a position that will give around 5mm clearance between the lowest part of the yoke and the table on the milling machine. I'm now going to head over to my MyFord ML7 lathe where I'm firstly going to drill a 10mm hole through the centre before using a parting off tool to cut two pieces of the same length. Here you can see the two pieces of round bar that are parted off on the lathe. I now need a way to clamp the yoke onto the table. I've got these two T-slot nuts, but the 10mm threaded rods aren't long enough, so I'm now going to measure and cut a couple of new pieces from this piece of rod here and then clamp the yoke to the table. Measuring the depth of the threaded holes and looking at the casting, I've worked out that I can remove 13mm of metal, which leaves a few threads in the holes and means I won't break through the casting. With the handlebar clamps now cut, I've fitted the yoke to the bike to see what it looks like. You can now see that the lower part of the clamps now sit lower than the tube caps. With the cutting now finished, I'm going to start filing, cutting and polishing. For sanding, I'll be using a variety of different gritted papers, including 120 grit for removing deeper scratches, right up to 3000 for final finishing. For filing, I'll be using different metal files, including needle files for finer detail. The polishing I'll be doing by hand using Autosol metal polish and microfiber cloths. To cover the clamp holes, I'm using 316 stainless dome head nuts that come with thin plastic washers. I need to reduce the length of the two that go into the holes at the top of the yoke because the thread isn't cut all the way through the casting. And once I've cut them, I'll tidy up the ends using a file. And after 12 hours of work, here's the finished yoke with the Daytona Valona 80mm gauge mounted using the bracket I made in part 3. Polished and with dome nuts fitted, I think it looks much better than I thought it would, and it's going to look even better when I fit these new stainless tube caps and stem nut. So that's work on the yoke complete. If you would like to follow the progress of this project and my future projects, you can do that by subscribing to my channel. Thank you for watching and see you next time. Cheers.